And we are live. Welcome to the Monday, August 21st edition of the Talk Sports Show with host Alec Pecado. Today's show, we are going to preview the American Athletic Conference and Conference USA, and I will also be going over a few other topics on college football and pro football. But let's get right into it. First, I will be going over my American Athletic Conference power rankings. Starting with number 14, Temple. I have Temple at number 14 for one main reason. Talent. They don't have that much talent on their team, and you will see evidence of that when I do my team preview of Temple in a few minutes. I do like Stan Drayton, their head coach, and I think he's a good head coach, but they need to do a better job of recruiting. At number 13 is Rice. And the main reason I have Rice at number 13 in the American Athletic Conference power rankings before the season is because they're new to the American and I don't know that much about them because I didn't really watch that much Conference USA football last year to see how good they were. At number 12 is Navy. And Navy fans, I know what you're going to say. Why is Navy this low on Alec's power rankings for the AAC before the season? The reason they're this low is because I don't know much about their new head coach, Brian Newberry. And he could prove me wrong if Navy wins. If Navy can upset Notre Dame, that's a big upset. And that'll change my perspective on Navy going forward. But I don't know if that upset's going to happen. At number 11 in my power rankings for the American, I have North Texas, another new team to the American. I watched a little bit more of them than I did Rice because they were actually fairly competitive in the Conference USA. And I think after 1 or 2 years in the American, they will be competitive. It's just going to take the transition period from Conference USA to the American for North Texas, I think is going to be a little tougher. At number 10 is Tulsa. I like Tulsa, but I think the reason I have them here is because they have an unproven quarterback starting this year, and Braylon Braxton. And he barely started last year because Davis Brin was the quarterback. When he did play, he played against, I think he played 2 or 3 games, and one of them was against USF, and he torched USF. At number 9, I've got another new team to the American, and that is FAU, the Florida Atlantic Owls. FAU's another new team in the American that I like, that I'm going to keep a close eye on this year. And I think they could be fairly competitive, and at the end of the season, I think they could be higher in these rankings, power rankings, for the American. At number 8 is UAB. And the reason UAB is at number 8 is not because they're new to the American, but because they have a new head coach. Bill Clark retired, and they hired Trent Dilfer, who I believe was a high school coach for a little bit. But then he went Then he started working at ESPN again. And I like the hire because he's very knowledgeable when it comes to, because he was a quarterback in the NFL. So that's where he gets his experience from. At number 7 is ECU. I could have had ECU inside the top 6, but there's one big glaring reason I don't, and it's their quarterback. When I made this the last time, I made a mistake. I thought Holton Ahlers was still at East Carolina. He is not. He is not at East Carolina anymore. They are replacing Holton Ahlers. And you'll see in their team preview who their starting quarterback, in my opinion, is probably going to be. At number 6 is another newcomer to the American, and that is Charlotte, the 49ers. And I believe Charlotte's going to be very competitive in this conference this year. At number 5 is Memphis. I think Memphis could be higher at the end of the season. I think they could jump UTSA, SMU, and Tulane and finish second in the American. This is preseason. A preseason power rankings for the American. But back to Memphis. This is a big year for their head coach, Ryan Silverfield. If he has a good year, I think he's safe. If he doesn't, I think he's gone, and they fire him and they hire a new head coach. At number 4, it's UTSA. They're new to the American, but I think they're going to compete in the American right away. They dominated in Conference USA, winning a bunch of conference titles. That is the reason I think they will, at the end of the year, they will be either 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the American. Number 3 in the American Conference, American Athletic Conference preseason power rankings is SMU, the Mustangs, with head coach Rhett Lashley and quarterback Preston Stone. I love SMU's one of the teams I love in the American this year. Preston Stone, the limited number of snaps he got last year, looked like the real deal. And I could see an avenue where he's a very good quarterback for SMU, and he helps them maybe win the American or finish second. Number 2 is the team that won the American last year, Tulane. I like Tulane. Willie Fritz is one of the best group of 5 coaches. He could have taken a bigger head coaching job in the offseason last year, but he decided to stay at Tulane, and their quarterback is Michael Pratt. And I have them finishing preseason and second in the American. Winning the American Athletic Conference this year will be the preseason power rankings. The winner of the American is USF. Home run hire, head coach Alex Golish, and returning quarterback Gary Bohannon. And now we get to the team previews. The first team preview is number 14 in my power rankings, Temple. As I talked about, and you can see on the screen, Stan Drayton's their head coach. Their quarterback, I believe, is going to be E.J. Warner. Temple is, I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the American this year, in the American Athletic Conference. If they don't finish last, I think they'll finish from, their ceiling is finishing in the bottom part of the rankings, which is 14 through 12. And I'm sorry, Temple fans, but that's just where I think you're going to finish. If you get some good recruits in, then maybe you can move up. And if you win more games, you will not be in dead last in my power rankings at the end of the season. At number 13 in the American Athletic Conference preseason power rankings is Rice with head coach Mike Blumgren. I don't know much about Mike Blumgren, but I do know a lot about their new shiny prize possession, JT Daniels. He's a grad transfer. He's been on a bunch of different teams. I don't need to name them all. You can go back and look at his career, college career. I think he will be the starter for Rice. No questions about it. Rice's big game this year is against Texas. I think they lose to Texas, but they compete with them. Number 12, Navy. Like I said in the power rankings, the reason Navy's at number 12 is because we don't know much about. We know Brian Newberry was their defensive coordinator last year, but we don't know much about what he's going to be as a head coach. And the key returner is quarterback Xavier Arline. At number 11 is North Texas. Under head coach Eric Morris. He's another coach I don't really know much about. And key returner quarterback Chandler Rogers. North Texas, like I said in the power rankings, they could compete in year one in the American, or they could be terrible. I'm going to take the latter and hope that they're very competitive and finish higher than number 11 in my rankings at the end of the season. Tulsa's at number 10. Under a new head coach, I didn't mention this in the power rankings. They snagged Ohio State offensive coordinator Kevin Wilson away from Ohio State. He is now the head coach at Tulsa. And as I was saying in the power rankings, inexperienced at QB, key returner, redshirt sophomore quarterback, Braylon Braxton. I think Tulsa can finish higher than 10th in the rankings at the end of the season if Braylon Braxton stays healthy the whole year. At number 9, FAU. Under another former Buckeye offensive coordinator, Tom Herman, and newcomer transfer quarterback Casey Thompson. He's another guy that's been at a few schools. He was at K-State. He was at Texas. Now he's at FAU, and I think he will be the starter at FAU. UAB comes in at number 8 for my team previews. Under first-year head coach Trent Dilfer and key returning quarterback Harrison Barker. I think UAB is another team, like I said about North Texas. I think they will compete in their first year in the American, but I don't know how many wins they'll get. They will win games. That's the key. They will win some games. At number 7 is East Carolina under head coach Mike Houston and key returning quarterback sophomore Mason Garcia. ECU is good. Don't get me wrong, but I think to be great in the American, they're going to have to beat everybody that's in front of them in the rankings, in the preseason power rankings, in order to get higher at the end of the season in the power rankings. I did watch a tad bit of the spring game. I do like Mason Garcia. I think he has a lot of potential. At number 6 in my power rankings for team previews is Charlotte University and their head coach Biff Pagaji. who got, please, Charlotte fans, Charlotte University football fans, I want to know if I said his name right. If I didn't, I'm sorry. I apologize. And newcomer QB Carson Black. Charlotte's another team I'm interested to see how they do in the American Athletic Conference. I think they'll do good. I think they may win some conference titles go in the future. At number 5 in my American Athletic Conference power rankings for team previews is Memphis and head coach Ryan Silverfield. I like Memphis's quarterback Seth Hannigan. He's overly efficient and accurate with throwing the football, but they love to run the ball at Memphis. That is their bread and butter, is running the football. And I think if they're going to have a good year, they may win the American. You never know. At number 4 is in my preseason team preview power rankings for the American is UTSA. UTSA under head coach Jeff Traylor, returning head coach Jeff Traylor, and key returners QB Frank Harris. This is a team, as a USF fan, this is the team I would be the most scared of in the American, even though it's their first year. Because they have a very experienced quarterback in Frank Harris, who could have entered the portal as a grad transfer and went to another school and started. But he decided to stick around at UTSA and stay there and finish what he started, which I like. I like guys that do that. They just said, I'm not going to enter the portal and go somewhere else. I'm going to stay where I know I can start and I can have a good chance of winning games. At number 3 is SMU. Hold on, give me a second. We're having some. Okay. I apologize for that little mishap, ladies and gentlemen. Back to my power rankings. Number 3, SMU. They're another team in the American that kind of scares me. And that is because of their quarterback, Preston Stone, key returner. I talked about him a little bit earlier. He played limited snaps last year for SMU, and he looked like the real deal. And I like guys that are mobile, quarterbacks that are mobile, and he can run, but he's also got a really good arm. And their head coach is Rhett Lashley. At number 2, Tulane. I talked about their head coach earlier in the power rankings. Here they are again at number 2 for team preview on my power for the American. Team preview. Tulane, Green Wave. Head coach Willie Fritz. Willie Fritz will be getting a bunch of good job offers after this season if he does what he did last year with Tulane. And that is win games. They have a big game in, I believe, week 3 against Ole Miss. That's kind of a prove-it game for Tulane to see if they're going to have a good season. If they win that game, they're probably going to. If they don't, I think they still have a good season. And could finish number 1 or number 2 in the American Athletic Conference. With senior quarterback Michael Pratt. And at number 1 in the American Athletic Conference for 2023 preseason power rankings is University of South Florida, with new head coach Alex Golish and key returners linebacker / defensive end Jason Vaughn and quarterback Gary Bohannon. I love this hire from USF. Jeff Scott didn't get the job done. I don't blame them for firing him. And I love the hire of Alex Golish. I think he's going to do special things with USF this year. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here are my Conference USA preseason power rankings. Compared to the American, I don't know much about Conference USA. Other than there is a couple teams in here that I know a little bit about. At number 9, New Mexico State. Number 8, Jacksonville State. I know a lot about Jacksonville State because they used to be in the Atlantic Sun with the school I went to, University of North Florida. I know more about their basketball program than I do their football program. At number 7, Middle Tennessee State. At number 6, another team jumping from the FCS, and that is the University, Sam Houston State University. Number 5, Louisiana Tech. Number 4, Western Kentucky. Number 3, FIU. Number 2, UTEP. And winning Conference USA in their first season is Liberty. Now we will get to our team previews. At number 9, New Mexico State for team previews. And their head coach is Danny Gonzalez. And their key game with Conference USA, if I couldn't find a good player in the team, I'd put their biggest game of the year. And for New Mexico State, it happens to be Liberty. And you're going to see Liberty on here a bunch. At number 8 is Jacksonville State with head coach Rich Rodriguez. Rich Rod. And their key game this year is on the road against Coastal Carolina. At number 7, I have Middle Tennessee State. And their head coach is Rick Stockdale. Their big game this year is at Alabama, which I don't think they're going to win. And that's obvious. At number 6, I've got Sam Houston State. And under Casey Keeler, their head coach. And their big game is at Liberty. At number 5 is Louisiana Tech and under head coach Sonny Crumby. And key transfer quarterback from Boise State, Hank Bachmeier. Western Kentucky is at number 4, head coach Tyson Helton. Key returning quarterback Austin Reed. I think Western Kentucky. If Liberty doesn't win Liberty doesn't win Conference USA, I think it will be Western Kentucky. Because they have them and Liberty have the most experience at quarterback. Number 3, FIU. And FIU fans, help me out with your coach's name. Is it Mike McIntyre? I believe that is his name, Mike McIntyre is the head coach at FIU. And key returner is wide receiver Jalen Bracey. UTEP is at number 2 with head coach Danny Dimmel and key returning quarterback Kevin Hardison. and winning Conference USA in their first year in the conference is Liberty, with new head coach Jamie Chadwell and key returning quarterback Caden Salter. And the next topic I'm going to talk about is why I think, in my opinion, the Pac-12 fell apart. The reason I think the Pac-12 fell apart is because they got greedy and they wanted more money for their TV deal than they could actually get. The first TV deal they got with ESPN was for $35 million, and I think half of it was going to go into revenue. And I think they should have taken that deal. But they got greedy and they said, no, we want more money. So ESPN took the first deal off the books with the Pac-12. And then they gave them another one for less money for $30 million, with a bunch of money going into revenue. Pac-12 said no to that, so ESPN took it off. Then they tried Apple TV, and Apple TV wanted to give them $25 million. And the Pac-12 said no to that. So, bottom line is that the Pac-12 is probably gone. Because there's only 3 teams left in the Pac-12. There's only 3 teams left in the Pac-12 now. Oregon State, Washington State, Cal, and Stanford. Correction, that's 4. There's only 4 teams left in the Pac-12 after this year. It's Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Washington, Arizona State are all leaving to go to a different conference. And I think the Pac-12 is gone. I don't think they're going to survive unless they bring in new teams. But I think Oregon State's going to end up going over to a new conference. Washington State, Cal, and Stanford. I think they will all end up joining a new conference. I don't know what conference, but they will join a new conference at some point. The next topic I'm going over today is my updated college football head coach's hot seat. And there's 3 names on the list. 2 new ones and 1 that stayed the same. At number 3, and let me phrase this. 3 means they're not as likely to get fired. 2 means maybe. 1 means yes, they're definitely getting fired at the end of the season. At number 3, Jimbo Fisher. I think Jimbo gets fired. 1, if Texas A&M underperforms this year, and they just said, oh, you know what, we'll suck it up and take the buyout money from Jimbo, and we'll find a new head coach. And 2, they just fire him straight up and they take the buyout. They pay the buyout from his contract. But I don't see Jimbo getting fired regardless. At number 2, Tom Allen of Indiana. And I think Tom Allen gets fired if Indiana doesn't have a good season. I think his percent chance of getting fired is 45. Jimbo's, I think it's 35% chance that he gets fired. Tom Allen's been really good at Indiana. I liked when they hired him because he brought some inspiration to Indiana when they really needed it, and I like that. And at number 1, it shouldn't surprise anybody. It is Neil Brown from West Virginia. And I talked about this when I did my coach's hot seat in the preseason after fall camp, after all the spring games. Neil Brown could have been fired in the offseason this year, but West Virginia didn't want to pay his buyout. So they decided to keep him, and I think his percent chance is a 99.9% chance he gets fired at the end of the season if West Virginia doesn't win more than 3 games, which I don't think they will. And Neil Brown, I don't think this was the right fit for Neil Brown at West Virginia, because they're in the Big 12, and the Big 12 is very competitive, and I just don't think that was the right fit for him. The next topic I will be covering in this show today is college football news. And there's 2 items I'm going to talk about. As you can see, one of them, I have the hat on for. That would be Ohio State. I have read reports online that they are getting close to naming a starting quarterback for this season. Right now, all signs are pointing towards them naming Kyle McCord as the starting quarterback. But there is reports also out there that they may split reps in the first couple games to see who plays better and takes full control of the offense. But like I did when I did my Big Ten, I think it's still going to be Kyle McCord's job to lose. And the next college football news item is that Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh will coach the 2023 season, where the NCAA continues to investigate his wrongdoings of paying recruits, buying them food, and which is illegal. And I don't think it's right, but we're not going to get into that. I thought Harbaugh should have been suspended. This is non-biased Ohio State Alec talk. If you cheat on anything in life or anything at all, you don't get anywhere. And Harbaugh's getting off easy right now because of what he's done. The next thing I'm going to talk about on the show today is I'm going to give you 2 news items from the NFL. The first one is the Colts have named Anthony Richardson QB1, which shouldn't surprise anybody. I know they signed Gardner Minshew in the offseason, but I think that was just to compete in training camp with Anthony Richardson in order to get him to be a better player. I don't think there was anything in there that said, oh, Anthony Richardson won't be the starting quarterback week 1. And I think this is a jolt of energy for the Colts. I think Anthony Richardson's going to have a good season. The next news item from the NFL is the Commanders have named Sam Howell their QB1. This is another one I like. Sam Howell got to play a little bit at the end of last year, and I thought he played pretty good. And I think this is Ron Rivera trying to stay face because he knows if they don't have a good season that he's going to get fired. As y'all saw in my video last night when I did the NFC West, I did the NFL coaches hot seat, and Ron Rivera was on there. So I think if the Commanders don't do good this year, Rivera's going to get fired. I think Sam Howell can be their franchise QB. They just need to get an offensive line around him. They have weapons. That's not the issue. I'm going to make a bold prediction for Sam Howell this year. I think Sam Howell is going to throw for 3,500 yards, 27 touchdowns to 10 picks, and he's going to finish second or third for young quarterbacks this year. And the last thing I'm going to talk about today on my show is giving you a preview of my college football trip this year. I will be going up to Columbus, Ohio, September 8th through the 11th for the Ohio State Youngstown State game on Saturday, September 9th. And just a little heads up, I will be streaming all 3 days that I'm in Ohio. The Monday when I come back, I will not be streaming. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I will be streaming while I'm in Ohio. But it won't be normal. It will be on my phone. I will not have my computer with me. So, still join in and comment. And then when I get back that Tuesday, that Monday night, I will be setting up for my stream on Tuesday. And I will tell you how my trip was. And we will get right back into churning out content for my lovely YouTube Talk Sports community audience. And if you have any tips or anything you want to tell me about, because I haven't been up to Columbus in a few years. So if there's any places you think I should go in Columbus, please leave it in the comments section down below, and I will answer it for you. And that is not going to do it yet, because now I'm going to go over my merch and how you find it, and my memberships to make it easy for everybody. So when you go on my YouTube page, when you go on my YouTube homepage, the merch section is towards the end of my scroll, the end of your scroll bar when you're on my page. And please feel free to buy some merch. Memberships is a little easier to find. It is, if you're subscribed already, which I would recommend subscribing, because you're going to every Sunday morning at 11 a.m., you will get college football rankings with me and my best friend Robbie. And also you will get our fantasy football advice. And we will talk about a few other topics as well. So I would highly recommend subscribing and liking this video. And if you haven't already, please go back and watch previous videos. As you see, I have interviewed one person already on the show, and it was Chris Fink, a former wide receiver from Notre Dame. And I'm trying to line up more interviews. I do have another trip coming up in February where I might be interviewing a few people and putting it up on the show on my YouTube. So that's just a little teaser at the road ahead. And that'll wrap up this early episode of the Talk Sports Show with host Alec Pecano. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you tonight at 7 o'clock. Peace out.